On August 16, 2025, a powerful storm system began to form over the Midwest. Weather experts had warned about the heat and humidity, but most people did not expect anything more than a few summer thunderstorms. The air was heavy and hard to breathe. The temperature felt like it was over 100 degrees in many places. This kind of weather is dangerous because it gives storms the fuel they need to grow bigger and stronger. As the afternoon arrived, radar showed large storm cells starting to develop. They were scattered at first, but soon they began to connect. These cells formed a large and long-lasting system that would stay over northern Illinois for nearly 17 straight hours. What made this storm different was that it refused to move on. It kept rebuilding and feeding off the hot, moist air. The first wave of storms came quickly. Cities like Belvidere, Palatine, and Sugar Grove were hit hard. Strong winds reached speeds close to 70 miles per hour. Trees were ripped from the ground, power lines snapped, rooftops were damaged. In Romoville, the wind caused major power outages almost immediately. Streets were covered in broken branches, pieces of siding, and other debris. For many residents, it was like waking up in the middle of a disaster. In McHenry County, the damage was just as bad. Emergency crews worked without rest. In one case, a tree crashed through the back window of a parked car. In another, a live power line fell across a busy road. Fire departments received call after call. People needed help everywhere. And the sky was still full of dark, fast-moving clouds. As night began to fall, many hoped that the worst was over. But the storm had other plans. Around 2 a.m. on August 17th, a second round of storms struck. This wave was just as strong as the first. It moved quickly from Algonquin into parts of Indiana, carrying winds as high as 70 miles per hour. But this time, people were sleeping. In Mount Prospect, a sudden blast of wind tore off part of an apartment building's roof. Heavy rain poured in. Water filled the hallways. Families woke up confused and afraid. Some rushed to grab pets. Others knocked on doors to warn their neighbors. There were no serious injuries, but the building was heavily damaged, and many people had to leave their homes in the middle of the night. The rain did not stop. In fact, it got worse. In many towns, it rained more than 4 inches in just a single hour. Streets became rivers. Water rushed through parking lots and driveways. In Oswego, over 6 inches of rain were recorded. By early morning, entire neighborhoods were flooded. In Naperville, water reached up to 1.5 feet deep in some areas. Roads were impassable. Cars were abandoned. Some drivers had to climb out of windows to escape the rising water. In Mokina, under a railroad bridge, 6 inches of water flowed like a small stream. In Chicago, underpasses and viaducts were completely underwater. Some cars were stuck for hours. Some drivers were trapped inside overnight, waiting for help. While the rain caused flooding, the winds continued to knock out power across the region. At the height of the storm, more than 215,000 homes and businesses were without electricity. Traffic lights failed. Street lights went dark. Security alarms stopped working. Families sat in their homes with flashlights, hoping the storm would end soon. In Belvidere, over 4,000 people lost power. Boone County also reported widespread outages. Power companies sent out repair crews, but the damage was so large that it was impossible to fix everything quickly. Fallen trees blocked access to key roads. Utility poles were snapped in half. Some areas would not see electricity return for days. CUMD, the main utility provider, brought in extra crews from nearby states. Workers repaired power lines, day and night. In some places, they had to clear entire blocks of downed trees before they could even begin repairs. In others, wires were so tangled with branches and metal that crews had to work slowly to avoid injury. By Sunday evening, more than 80% of customers had power again. But many others had to wait until Monday or later. Police departments across the region also responded to hundreds of emergency calls. Many were about trapped drivers, flooded roads, and broken traffic lights. Firefighters helped pump out water from basements. Public works teams placed barricades to keep cars away from dangerous areas. It was a full community response. By the time the storm system moved away on the morning of August 17th, the damage was everywhere. In some neighborhoods, basements were still filling with water. In others, people were climbing over trees just to get out of their driveways. The cleanup had barely started, and already it was clear that this would take weeks to recover from. In Cary, the fire department answered nearly 100 calls that night. Many of the calls were about downed trees, flooded basements, or power emergencies. In Mount Prospect, the damaged apartment building had to be fully evacuated. Some families were sent to temporary shelters. Others stayed with friends or relatives. Some had no choice but to sleep in their cars. The storm was later identified as a mesoscale convective system. These types of storms are rare and dangerous. They form when hot, humid air gets trapped and feeds new storm cells over and over. Instead of passing through quickly, They regenerate and grow. This one lasted nearly an entire day. There were no tornadoes during this event, but the damage was still extreme. Straight-line winds can be just as powerful. These winds travel fast and can hit large areas at once. They brought down trees, broke windows, and even lifted parts of roofs off buildings. In some places, the ground looked like it had been hit by a hurricane. The flooding made things even worse. Many drainage systems could not keep up. Water came through windows and doors. It pushed up through basement drains. Some houses that had never flooded before were now filled with dirty water. Furniture was ruined. Carpets were soaked. Appliances were destroyed. In many homes, the cleanup would cost thousands of dollars. In the days that followed, the cleanup began. Power crews worked around the clock. City workers cleared the streets. Volunteers handed out water and food. People helped their neighbors carry out ruined furniture and mop up mud. Even though the damage was huge, the community came together. In Oswego, some families had to throw away almost everything inside their homes. In Belvedere, residents used chainsaws to cut fallen trees into pieces. In Chicago, streets that had been rivers just days before were now covered in thick layers of mud. And still, people kept working. They kept helping. They did not give up. In the suburbs, local charities handed out cleaning supplies and meals. Some schools opened their gyms for shelter. Churches and mosques offered places to sleep and charge phones. People shared food, tools, and rides. It was a reminder that even in hard times, kindness can be found everywhere. This storm will be remembered not just for its power, but for how long it lasted. 17 hours of constant wind, rain, and noise. 17 hours of fear, stress, and waiting. And after it ended, the cleanup began, slow, heavy, and painful. People who lived through it will remember the sounds: the wind tearing through trees, the loud crack when a branch hit the roof, the silence when the power went out, the beep of a fire alarm dying in the dark, the deep sound of rain hitting the ground for hours on end. Officials warned that this might not be the last storm like this. As the climate gets hotter, storms may become stronger and last longer. Cities will need better plans, homes will need better protection, and people will need to be ready for the next one. Weather patterns are changing. Some experts say that these long-duration storms will happen more often. They advise cities to improve drainage systems, build stronger power grids, and give people better ways to prepare. Schools, hospitals, and emergency services all need plans for when the next storm hits. But through all the damage, one thing was clear. The people of Illinois are strong. They faced a storm that would not quit. They stayed calm, they helped each other, and they began to rebuild. This was not just a weather event. It was a reminder that nature is powerful. It can change everything in a moment. It can test people in ways they never imagined. But even after 17 hours of chaos, Illinois stood tall. The skies finally cleared. The power came back. The water dried up. And life moved forward. But no one who lived through that day will ever forget the storm that refused to end. The storm that turned a normal day into a story that will be told for years.